Look around you right now. Look at the people who command genuine respect in your life. What do they have that others don't? Is it money? Sometimes. Is it position? Occasionally. Is it power? Perhaps. But I've seen wealthy people who are despised. I've witnessed powerful people who are feared but not respected. I've observed people with impressive titles who cannot get their teams to follow them out of a burning building. True respect, the kind that lasts beyond your presence in a room, is not something you can buy, demand, or inherit. It is something you earn through the habits you practice daily. Today we're going to talk about transformation. Not the kind that happens overnight, but the kind that occurs when you systematically eliminate the behaviors that are sabotaging the respect others have for you. Your habits are creating your future right now. They're either building a foundation of respect or they are quietly undermining your influence without you even realizing it. I want to challenge your thinking today. I want to disturb your comfort zone. Because transformation begins at the end of your comfort zone. When you identify and remove these 5 critical habits, you create space for respect to grow naturally. This isn't about techniques to manipulate others into respecting you. This is about becoming the kind of person who naturally commands respect without demanding it. Are you ready to be disturbed? Are you prepared to be uncomfortable? Because that's where growth begins. Let me establish something important before we begin. Respect cannot be demanded. It can only be earned. When you demand respect, you might get compliance, but you'll never get commitment. You might get obedience, but you'll never get loyalty. True respect is freely given because it is genuinely deserved. Every human being on this planet hungers for respect. It is a fundamental need that transcends culture, age, gender, and social status. The child in the classroom wants to be respected by their teacher. The employee wants to be respected by their manager. The leader wants to be respected by their team. The spouse wants to be respected by their partner. This hunger for respect is universal because it validates our sense of worth and dignity. But here's what many people miss. Respect is not something you get automatically. It's something you earn continually. And it's earned not through what you accomplish, but through who you become. In my years working with leaders across the world, I've discovered that respect is the foundation of all meaningful influence. Without respect, your words carry no weight. Without respect, your position holds no authority. Without respect, your vision inspires no followers. Respect is the invisible currency that determines how far your leadership will reach. It determines whether people follow you because they have to or because they want to. It determines whether your words change minds or simply fill space. The principle is simple but profound. If you want to increase your influence, you must increase the respect others have for you. And that begins not by focusing on others, but by focusing on yourself. Specifically, by eliminating the habits that are secretly destroying the respect others have for you. Today we're going to identify and address the 5 most destructive habits that are robbing you of the respect you deserve. These aren't minor adjustments. These are fundamental shifts that will transform how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. The first habit you must eliminate to earn respect is making excuses. Every time you make an excuse, you surrender your power. Every time you blame something or someone else for your circumstances, you announce to the world that you are not in control of your life. Let me tell you something powerful. Excuses are the language of the disempowered. They are the vocabulary of victims. When you speak in excuses, you train others to see you as someone who lacks agency and authority in your own life. And people do not respect those they perceive as victims. They pity them. Consider what happens psychologically when you make an excuse. You're essentially saying, I am not responsible for this outcome. Something or someone else is. While this might provide temporary emotional relief, it comes at a devastating cost to your credibility and the respect others have for you. Think about the people you respect the most. Do they constantly explain why things didn't work out? Do they regularly blame circumstances beyond their control? Of course not. The people we respect deeply take ownership even when it's painful to do so. I remember working with a business leader whose company was struggling. In meeting after meeting, he offered sophisticated excuses. The economy, changing regulations, unexpected market shifts. His explanations were articulate and even convincing. But with each excuse, I watched his team's respect for him diminish. They nodded politely, but their eyes revealed the truth. They were losing confidence in his leadership. Then something changed. After a particularly difficult quarter, he called his team together and simply said, "I've been looking for reasons outside of my control, but the truth is, I missed critical opportunities. I made poor decisions." And that stops today. In that moment of raw accountability, you could feel the energy shift in the room. By abandoning excuses, he began rebuilding respect. The responsibility mindset is fundamentally different. It asks, what can I do now with what I have? It says, given these circumstances, how can I still deliver results? This mindset does not deny reality, but it refuses to be imprisoned by it. To develop this mindset, start small. When something goes wrong today, catch yourself before the excuse forms on your lips. Instead, ask, what part of this can I take responsibility for? Even if it's just 10% of the situation, own that 10% completely. Next, practice solution-focused language. Instead of explaining why something can't be done, train yourself to start with, here's what I can do. This subtle shift moves you from excuse-making to problem-solving. Finally, establish accountability structures in your life. Find people who will not accept your excuses and give them permission to call you out when you slip back into old patterns. True friends don't comfort your excuses. They challenge you to rise above them. Remember, respect is not built on perfection. It's built on accountability. People don't expect you to be flawless, but they do expect you to own your flaws. When you eliminate excuse-making from your life, you immediately elevate how others perceive you. You demonstrate that you are a person of agency and responsibility, someone worthy of genuine. The second habit you must remove is the habit of negative criticism. Make no mistake, there's a profound difference between offering constructive feedback that helps someone grow and engaging in criticism that merely tears them down. When you habitually criticize others, you telegraph something alarming about yourself, that you build yourself up by tearing others down. This reveals insecurity, not strength. And insecurity never commands respect. The negative criticism is like acid. It corrodes everything it touches, including the container it's stored in. When you regularly criticize others, you might think you're demonstrating your superior standards or intelligence. In reality, you're training everyone around you to be defensive in your presence and to question your motives. Have you ever noticed how people physically position themselves around a chronically critical person? They lean away, they cross their arms. Their body language communicates what they may never say aloud. I don't feel safe around you. And where there is no psychological safety, there can be no genuine respect. I once observed a team leader who had the habit of immediately pointing out flaws in every idea presented in meetings. Her analytical mind could spot weaknesses quickly, and she believed she was helping by identifying problems early. But over time, her team stopped bringing creative ideas to the table. Innovation withered. Why? Because no one wants to offer their best thinking only to have it immediately dismantled. What this leader failed to understand is that consistent criticism doesn't inspire better performance. It inspires safer behavior. People don't excel under constant criticism. They simply learn to avoid situations where they might be criticized. The alternative to criticism isn't silence. It's affirmation coupled with thoughtful feedback. This is where many go wrong. They think their options are either brutal criticism or dishonest positivity. but there's a middle path that actually builds respect. This path begins with genuine affirmation. Before addressing areas for improvement, affirm what's working well. This isn't manipulative, it's accurate. Almost every situation, person, or idea has strengths worth recognizing. By acknowledging these first, you demonstrate fairness and perspective, qualities people deeply respect. Next, offer observations rather than judgments. Instead of saying this presentation is boring, you might say, I notice myself struggling to connect with the material in the middle section. One is a judgment that invites defensiveness. The other is an observation that invites collaboration. Finally, ensure your feedback is aimed at growth, not punishment. Ask yourself, am I offering this observation to help this person improve, or am I trying to establish my own superiority? The former builds respect, the latter destroys it. To practice this shift, try implementing the affirmation ratio. For every improvement you suggest, offer at least 2 specific affirmations. This forces you to look for what's right before addressing what's wrong. Also, adopt the habit of asking permission before offering feedback. Would you be open to some thoughts on how this might be even stronger? This simple question demonstrates respect for the other person's agency and creates receptivity that command never could. Remember, the people we respect the most aren't those who never see problems. They're those who address problems in ways that maintain the dignity of everyone involved. When you release the habit of negative criticism, you create an environment around you where people feel valued rather than evaluated. And this is fertile soil for respect to grow. The third habit you must eliminate is inconsistency. Few things erode respect faster than unpredictability in character, communication, or performance. When people cannot predict who you will be from one day to the next, trust evaporates. And without trust, respect is impossible. Inconsistency creates cognitive dissonance in those around you. They never know which version of you will show up, the enthusiastic visionary or the disengaged critic, the supportive colleague or the competitive rival. This unpredictability forces others to remain constantly vigilant in your presence, draining the emotional energy that could otherwise be directed toward collaboration and growth. I once worked with an organizational leader who was brilliant but wildly inconsistent. On Monday, he would passionately champion a new initiative. By Wednesday, he'd be questioning why anyone would waste time on it. His team lived in perpetual whiplash, never knowing whether their work would be celebrated or criticized. Despite his intelligence and charisma, respect for him steadily declined until his effectiveness was crippled. Consistency, on the other hand, builds a foundation of psychological safety. When people know what to expect from you, when your words align with your actions and your actions align with your stated values, they can relax their defensive posture. They can bring their best ideas and their authentic selves to the relationship because they trust the environment you create. Building consistency begins with establishing clear personal standards. These aren't aspirational values that sound impressive in a mission statement. These are non-negotiable behaviors that define who you are regardless of circumstances. These standards might include, I keep my word even when it's inconvenient, or I communicate respectfully even when angry, or I maintain the same ethical standards whether someone is watching or not. And once you've defined these standards, you must build systems that protect them. This might mean creating buffers in your schedule so you're not constantly running late. It might mean establishing communication protocols that prevent you from making impulsive decisions when emotional. It might mean developing accountability relationships where others have permission to flag inconsistencies they observe in your behavior. The goal isn't rigid inflexibility, it's trustworthy consistency. People should be able to predict with reasonable accuracy how you'll respond to situations based on your established patterns. This predictability isn't boring, it's reassuring. It allows others to relax their guard and engage with the real substance of your character and ideas, rather than constantly recalibrating to your shifting presentation. To develop greater consistency, start by conducting a personal audit. Ask trusted colleagues or friends, what's one area where you see inconsistency in my behavior or communication? Their answers may surprise you. We're often blind to our own inconsistencies. Next, identify your trigger points, the specific circumstances that tend to knock you off your centered, consistent self. Is it stress, tiredness, conflict? Recognition of these triggers allows you to develop specific strategies for maintaining consistency even under pressure. Finally, practice the discipline of keeping small promises. Before making any commitment, ask yourself, am I absolutely certain I can fulfill this? If not, don't promise it. Your word should be so reliable that others can build plans upon it without hesitation. Remember, consistency isn't about perfection, it's about reliability. People respect those they can count on, those who show up as the same person regardless of circumstances. When you abandon inconsistency, you create a solid foundation upon which deep, lasting respect can be built. The fourth habit you must remove is people-pleasing. This may seem counterintuitive. Wouldn't making people happy increase their respect for you? Paradoxically, the opposite is true. Chronic people-pleasing doesn't build respect, it quietly erodes it. People-pleasing comes from a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. It assumes that by making others happy in the moment, you'll earn their lasting admiration. But human psychology doesn't work that way. We don't respect what we can control, and the people-pleaser makes themselves controllable through others' approval or disapproval. I've witnessed countless capable individuals undermine their effectiveness by prioritizing temporary harmony over necessary truth. They withhold their authentic perspectives, agree with contradictory positions depending on who's in the room, and make commitments they can't possibly keep, all to avoid the discomfort of potential disapproval. What they don't realize is that while their behavior might prevent short-term conflict, it simultaneously destroys long-term respect. Because here's what everyone intuitively understands. If you'll say anything to please me, your words mean nothing. If you'll abandon your position at the first sign of my disapproval, your convictions mean nothing. I recall working with a talented professional who was constantly overcommitted because she couldn't say no. She feared disappointing others, so she said yes to everything, then inevitably disappointed everyone when she couldn't deliver on all her promises. Her people-pleasing didn't create respect, it created resentment. The alternative to people-pleasing isn't rudeness or indifference to others' needs. It's authentic engagement based on clear boundaries and genuine conviction. This approach builds respect because it demonstrates self-respect, and we cannot expect from others what we don't first give ourselves. Developing this alternative begins with clarifying your non-negotiables, the principles, values, and boundaries that you will maintain regardless of external pressure. These aren't preferences that shift with the wind. They're foundations that define who you are. Next, practice the art of the respectful no. This isn't about abruptly refusing requests. It's about honoring both your limitations and the other person's request. You might say, I want to give this the attention it deserves, and I can't do that with my current commitments. Here's what I can offer instead. Also important is developing comfort with temporary disapproval. The people pleaser avoids this at all costs, but the respected leader understands that meaningful relationships can withstand disagreement. Train yourself to sit with the discomfort of someone being momentarily unhappy with your decision, knowing that genuine respect grows. Creating this shift requires practice. Start with low-stakes situations where you express an authentic opinion that might not be universally popular. Notice that the world doesn't end. Observe how people who initially disagree might actually engage more deeply with you because they sense your authenticity. Gradually increase the difficulty by setting boundaries around your time, energy, and expertise. You'll discover that most reasonable people respond positively to clearly communicated boundaries because they signal self-awareness and integrity, qualities that command genuine respect. Remember, respect isn't about being liked by everyone in every moment. It's about being trusted over time. When you stop the habit of people-pleasing, you might experience more short-term friction, but you'll cultivate something far more valuable, long-term respect, based on knowing who you truly are and what you genuinely stand for. The fifth and final habit you must remove is breaking promises. Your word is the currency of your character. Every time you fail to deliver on what you've promised, you're essentially issuing counterfeit currency, and eventually no one will accept it at face value. Nothing destroys respect more efficiently than unreliability. When you make commitments you don't keep, whether they're major contracts or simply saying, I'll call you tomorrow and not doing so. You train others to see your words as empty. And when your words lose their weight, your influence evaporates with them. I've observed organizations where promise breaking became normalized. Leaders would announce initiatives that never materialized. Deadlines were set with no intention of meeting them. Commitments were made to placate rather than to perform. The result was a culture of profound cynicism where even the most sincere declarations were met with eye-rolling disbelief. The tragedy is that many don't realize how severely broken promises impact how others perceive them. They view each unfulfilled commitment as an isolated incident rather than recognizing the cumulative effect on their reputation. But others are keeping score, consciously or unconsciously, tracking the gap between what you say and what you actually do. Building a reputation for reliability begins with a radical commitment to integrity, ensuring alignment between your words and actions, even when it's inconvenient or costly. This doesn't mean you never face circumstances that prevent you from fulfilling commitments. It means you approach promise making with appropriate gravity and promise breaking with appropriate accountability. The first step is to practice the discipline of under-promising and over-delivering. Before making any commitment, ask yourself, can I absolutely guarantee this outcome given realistic obstacles that might arise? If not, either don't make the promise or clearly communicate the contingencies that might affect your ability to deliver. Next, implement the habit of promise management. Just as you would track important financial transactions, track the commitments you've made to others. Review them regularly and proactively communicate if circumstances change that might affect your ability to deliver as promised. When you do fail to keep a promise, and everyone occasionally will, practice immediate accountability. Don't wait for others to notice or call you out. Approach them directly, acknowledge the broken commitment without excuses, and offer a specific plan to make it right. This doesn't completely erase the impact of the broken promise, but it demonstrates integrity that builds rather than erodes respect. I worked with a business owner who had developed a reputation for unreliability with both clients and team members. His words had lost their value because they so rarely translated into corresponding action. We implemented a simple but powerful practice. At the end of each day, he would review any promises made that day and immediately contact anyone whose expectations he needed to reset based on changing circumstances. Within months, the shift in how others responded to him was remarkable. They began to trust his word again because he demonstrated that he took his commitments seriously. Consider auditing your own reliability. Ask trusted colleagues or friends, on a scale of 1-10, how reliable do you consider me? If not a 10, what would move me closer? Their answers may be uncomfortable, but they offer invaluable data for growth. Remember, respect is built not on grand promises, but on consistent follow-through. People forgive capability limitations far more readily than character limitations. They might respect you despite not being able to do everything, but they cannot respect you if they cannot trust your word. When you eliminate the habit of broken promises, you establish the foundation for enduring respect that no position, power, or prosperity could ever purchase. We've explored 5 habits that silently destroy the respect others have for you. Excuse making, negative criticism, inconsistency, people-pleasing, and broken promises. But identifying these habits is just the beginning. Transformation requires more than knowledge, it requires action. I want you to imagine yourself 6 months from now having systematically eliminated these 5 habits from your life. Picture how differently people respond to you. See their posture when you speak, attentive, engaged, receptive. Hear the weight your words now carry. Feel the influence you now wield, not through position or power, but through the respect you've genuinely earned. This transformation won't happen overnight. There will be moments of regression. Old habits will attempt to reassert themselves in moments of stress or fatigue. But with each choice to take responsibility rather than make excuses, to affirm rather than criticize, to be consistent rather than erratic, to be authentic rather than pleasing, and to keep your word rather than break it, you build momentum toward becoming a person worthy of profound respect. And here's something remarkable. As others' respect for you grows, something even more important increases as well, your respect for yourself. You'll find yourself standing taller, speaking with greater confidence, and moving through the world with renewed purpose because you know that your character has substance, your integrity has weight, your presence has meaning. The journey of transformation I'm describing isn't easy, but it is simple. It begins with a single decision. The decision to live in such a way that respect becomes the natural response to who you are, rather than something you must demand or manipulate from others. I challenge you today, choose one of these 5 habits and commit to its elimination over the next 30 days. Don't try to change everything at once. Focus your energy on one specific habit. Build success there, and then move to the next. Small, consistent changes ultimately produce revolutionary results. What makes this approach so powerful is that you're not adding more to your already busy life. You're removing what doesn't serve you. You're not trying to become someone else. You're simply eliminating what prevents people from seeing who you truly are. This subtraction-based transformation is sustainable because it doesn't require constant energy to maintain. It actually creates energy by removing the exhausting work of making excuses, criticizing others, being inconsistent, pleasing everyone, and managing broken promises. Consider this. Every person you deeply respect has already eliminated these habits from their life. They didn't start with some special advantage. They simply made a decision that you're now being invited to make. The decision to stop doing what diminishes respect and start embodying what naturally commands it. As you embark on this journey, remember that you'll face resistance, both from within and without. Old patterns will fight to survive. Some people, accustomed to your former habits, may even try to pull you back into familiar territory. This is normal. Transformation always creates temporary turbulence before it creates lasting change. The key is to anchor yourself in the vision of who you're becoming rather than who you've been. Wake up each morning and remind yourself, today I choose accountability over excuses. I choose affirmation over criticism. I choose consistency over unpredictability. I choose authenticity over people-pleasing. I choose integrity over broken promises. These daily declarations will program your subconscious mind and direct your conscious choices. Remember, the respect others have for you is not determined by your achievements, your position, or your possessions. It's determined by your character, by who you become when no one is watching, and who you remain when everyone is. Choose today to become the kind of person who earns respect, not by demanding it, but by deserving it. The transformation begins now. The person you become in this journey will lead with an influence that no title could ever confer and leave a legacy that no achievement could ever eclipse. That is the power of earned respect.